It is absolutely freezing here on Long Island right now. But the real estate market, that's a different story. So while we're all bundled up, scraping ice off windshields, the January market numbers came in and they tell a very clear story. So let's roll the spray paint and take a look. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Long Island Real Estate with me, Sal Catalano. In this episode, we're going to be breaking down the January 2026 housing data for Suffolk and Nassau County. This is the first time diving into numbers this year. The last video I put out was my 2026 market prediction episode. I'll link that down below if you haven't seen it. Check it out. And throughout this video, we're going to check whether January, I know it's early, whether January is sporting those predictions, or if it's already starting to humble me. So since it's brutally cold outside, if you're watching this from inside with a coffee, trying to hide from the wind, I will also link my winter things to do with kids guide below. A lot of cool stuff in there, completely free. Take a look at it, give you some ideas on what to do. But other than that, let's dive into the numbers and let's start over in Suffolk County. Here's what the January data shows for Suffolk. The average sales price was $685,000, which was very, very slightly down month over month. The months of inventory was at 2.3, which was down pretty big at 7.63% from last month. The sold to list ratio is at 100.5%, so people are still getting over ask. And the average days on market was 38, which is also up 5.56% month over month. So let's interpret that stuff correctly. Prices dipped slightly month over month, but inventory dropped significantly, over 7.6%. So supply continues to tighten in a meaningful way. Homes are still selling over asking at an average of 100.5%. So kind of the same thing that we've been seeing. Sellers still have a lot of leverage. The days on market ticked up slightly, but this time of year that's completely normal. You know, January on Long Island means freezing weather, snow, holiday carryover schedules, things getting rescheduled, kids' activities, all that type of stuff. Weather alone can jam things up for inspections, appraisals, walkthroughs. Just makes things take a little bit longer. Homes are still moving in just over a month. That's not slow by any means. Throughout the country, that would still be very fast. So just a little bit slower than kind of what we've seen. But like I said, very much expected. So Suffolk still remains firmly in a seller's market. New year, same tune. Buyers still need to be aggressive and prepared. Winter does not equal discounts, but you do have a little bit more opportunity. There's just not some massive, sell-off. There's just not. All right, so the data for Nassau County for January is this. The average sales price was $830,000. At months of inventory was 2.14. That's down 4.89% from last month. So again, inventory continues to tighten. The sold to list ratio is 99.3%, which is down 1.25% over month over month. And I cannot remember the last time I saw that being under 100%. So maybe if that becomes a trend, that might be something to look at, but we'll see. Average days on market, 39. That's up 11.43% from last month. Inventory declined again. That reinforces the seller's leverage. And homes are selling just under asking, but 99.3% is still pretty strong. But like I said, that's very interesting development this month. The days in market increased here just as it did in Suffolk, but again, the context matters. January's always has people in a slower rhythm. People are juggling work, school, freezing temperatures, even sometimes storms that can push stuff off pretty significantly. So even simpler things, buyer travel related schedules can stretch timelines. 39 days in the middle of winter is not a red flag at all. Just kind of the seasonal rhythm that we're seeing in Suffolk as well. Nassau, these numbers say that Nassau is still clearly a seller's market. So for buyers, it means preparation still matters just as it always does. Pre-approval is not optional. Strategy is not optional, which is why I think my 2026 buyer's guide, which I'll also link below, can be really helpful for people, completely free. Take a look at it. You know, if you want, is great as like a preliminary thing to kind of, you know, give you a very early idea about the market. But if you're serious on getting into this market, you need a plan. Bottom line. All right, so what's my take? Here's the big picture. Inventory declined in both counties. Homes are still selling at or over asking. Prices are still holding strong. If you watched my 2026 market prediction video, I said inventory would remain tight, sellers would maintain leverage, and we wouldn't see a dramatic correction. Long Island would behave differently than a lot of the country that seemed to have been slowing down. So far, January supports that thesis. It's only 1 month in, and I will say that dip in average sales price, that dip in sold to list ratio in Nassau is very interesting. But there is absolutely nothing in this data that suggests any kind of major swing is underway at all. The market's not exploding upward. It's not crashing downward. It's steady. And steady on Long Island is exactly what we've been seeing, which does mean that while the market is tough, it is easy to be prepared. And it reminds me of this quote I've mentioned in a couple other videos from the famous coach John Wooden. When opportunity strikes, it's too late to prepare. So get ahead of it. All right, taking a look back and taking a look all around Long Island, the New York Post just put out an article saying that Long Island is one of the, if not the strongest sellers market in the United States. And honestly, this should surprise nobody who has been following along here. We've been talking about low inventory, over asking sales, limited new construction, constrained geography, and steady demand, month in, month out. But here's what stood out in the article. They specifically called out this quote: particularly active segments can be found in the $2 million to $4 million price range in prominent North Shore villages, Nassau County, including Roslyn, Roslyn Heights, Old Westbury, and Brookville. So we're not talking about entry level. We're talking about like luxury North Shore. When you see strength in the $2 to $4 million range, that tells you confidence exists across price tiers. This is not just a starter home surge. Capital's moving at higher levels too. And that is structural strength. Again, national press is just catching up to what we've been discussing here on this channel for months, month after month. This will probably be its own reel because it reinforces everything we've been seeing in the numbers, but definitely is interesting to see. All right, let's take a step back and look at a national headline that I thought was interesting. There's an article I linked below from Bankrate talking about mortgage rates. And essentially, we are still in that low 6% range where we kind of saw the year end. And here's why that matters. If rates continue to trend lower, like they seem to be at the end of last year and seem to be continuing to do, purchasing power increases. When purchasing power increases, more buyers enter the market. When more buyers enter a supply-constrained market like Long Island, competition increases. Simple supply and demand. Lower rates do not automatically mean easier buying conditions. They can mean more competition. And this is why preparation matters. If you don't have a pre-approval, You don't truly know your budget. If you don't know your real budget, you can't compete strategically. And if you can't compete strategically, you end up reacting instead of leading. A strong pre-approval tells you what you qualify for, tells you what your monthly comfort level is, how much leverage you have, and what price tier you should actually target. That clarity allows you to move quickly and confidently when you find what you're looking for. And that's why having a rock solid plan matters more than trying to perfectly time the market ever will. So if you're thinking about buying this year, that's exactly why I put together my 2026 buyer's guide. I'll link that below as well, completely free. Gives you kind of just a preliminary idea of what you're going to be in for, and kind of what kind of approach you need to take in this market. Prepared buyers win in competitive markets. I know it's freezing. I know it's winter. I know everyone's schedules are wild. So I genuinely appreciate you taking a few minutes to tune in. If you want to see whether my 2026 market predictions video continues to hold up, I will link it below. If you need ideas to survive the winter with your kids, that guide's below. All my guides are free. If you're thinking about buying this year, definitely check out the buyer's guide. Put a lot of work into it. If you found this helpful, like the video, comment your thoughts. I would love to hear what you guys think about the numbers so far this year. And subscribe so you don't miss next month's breakdown. Stay warm, and I will see you guys on the next one.